This evening we'll continue with the discourse on the insight into the mysticism of the divinity Amun. And last time we were here, we had some difficulties with the internet, and so we weren't able to conclude the last teaching. So today we will move forward from that and continue with this very profound treatise on how creation came into being. But before we do that, the others are in the States and they just turned over to daylight savings time, and so an announcement was not sent out, so they probably will join when we're just ending. So all the island people are here learning about creation. And so why is it important to know about creation and how things came into being? It's very significant because it gives you a certain particular insight into the universe and your own existence within the universe. And not only that, it gives you insight into yourself as an inextricably linked aspect of the universe. So in other words, when we're talking about creation, we're actually talking about you. Because God is, from a mystical perspective, we're talking from high mysticism here now. God is not outside of yourself. Like God is not in a different realm or a different dimension or a different place than where you are right now. The hymn to Akhenaten actually substantiates this very, very poignantly and very strongly. And therefore, you as a human being, you are in a state of confusion about your own existence because you see physical nature and you think physical nature is the reality. You think physical nature is real. And so your mind becomes confused. And so your existence in the world is a confused existence. So understanding creation gives you particular insight into the nature of the world and the nature of nature. And if that can be understood, then you gain comprehensive insight into your own true nature. It is very difficult to understand your true nature if you don't understand how creation came into being. And why this elaborate philosophy is necessary. Talking about the creative process from the aspect of there being a creator. And the processes of creation. But here, talking particularly about the aspect of having a creator power, the reason why that is necessary is because the human mind is incapable of understanding that creation has not happened. Creation doesn't really exist. However, there is a phenomenon that is occurring. And so to give the mind an understanding of what is occurring, then creation needs to be spoken of. It's very difficult for the mind to conceptualize that existence is beginningless and is endless. In other words, if you're searching for a beginning, if you try to search for a beginning of existence, you would conclude that there is no beginning to existence. It's beginningless. But for a spiritual practitioner to gain some insight into his or her true nature, then what is necessary is to talk about creation. And this is what we're doing now, so that the spiritual practitioner can gain insight into his or her own true nature. So we started out with this chapter 90, which is a very profound teaching from the perspective of creation, talking about Amun, how every divinity joined his body is his image. So realize that all of the gods and goddesses are not only aspects, but phenomenal appearances of the deity, of the transcendent reality, Amun. What that means is that these divinities are projections of your mind. They are mental constructs. Therefore, they are appearances. The gods and goddesses are not absolute realities. This is what this is saying. But they make an appearance. They appear to the mind. If you go into a meditative state or meditative condition, and one of the gods and goddesses appear to you, or you have the mental power to create an actual divinity in your meditative mind stream, that is a projection of your own mind. It's a projection of your psyche. And therefore, it's not an absolute reality. But anything that comes into existence has a function and is bounded by the phenomenon of cause and effect. So something will happen. The nature of what happens, the true nature of what is occurring, is illusionary from the perspective that it is momentary and temporary. In other words, impermanent. Therefore, it is illusionary. If you were to examine any aspect of nature, including the divinities, and try to search out the true or the absolute reality of it, the substantial reality of it. Let's take a human being, for example, and make it more conceptualized for the understanding of the mind. If you take a human being and you try to search out what is the person, say a human being, well, what constitutes the person of a human being? What you would conclude is that there is no person there. You're personless. Likewise, if one were to search out one of these appearances of a moon and try to discover the essential quality or the personhood of the deity, what one would conclude is that there is no intrinsic reality to the divinities. They are constructs of your mind, and therefore they can make up nature, they can compose nature. So thus the Nile River is happy, the earth is Geb, the sky is the goddess Nu. So they have a certain particular function and can take up occupation, and they do take up occupation within the realm of time and space. Now, what is time and space? From the perspective of astrophysics, space-time is actually a primordial essence of what can be called or what can be constituted as consciousness. In other words, it's like a vast infinite plasma, and that the objects, talking about the planets and so forth, sit on this plasma, this space-time, and causes dimples in it, somewhat like those the wrappings when you send objects that you don't want to have broken, and you send these objects and you have the bubble wrap. Maybe you can think of that bubble wrap as indentations, as opposed to popping up. They pop down. Like when you pop one of them, they make a concave groove. So when a planet sits on the space-time plasma, it makes a dimple in that space-time, and that allows that planet or that star to remain in existence. And so Amun, it says further that Amun, whose name is hidden from the divinities. What this means is that beyond space-time, beyond the primordial plasma, the Nun, upon which nature is supported, there is the dimension or the realm where it is hidden from your outgoing senses. And so the gods and goddesses are themselves inhibited from perceiving correctly the hidden Amun, because they take up occupation in space-time. Thus, deep within you are deep within you have your essential nature is that which is hidden. In other words, the 9 aspects of the human personality as delineated in Kemetic philosophy, as well as your physical body, including your physical body, are all illusionary aspects of your true nature. In other words, if you believe in your body, you believe that your body is the sum total of your existence, or the true expression of what constitutes a person, you would find that that is an erroneous conception. It is a bad philosophy. That is the materialistic philosophy. And that materialistic philosophy essentially leads a human being to pain and suffering, misery, confusion of the mind. If you were to understand your true nature as that which is hidden from your senses, and you were to develop sufficient purity to experience that, it would have a fundamental transformation on your psyche. In other words, you will have intuitive insight, realization into the true nature of physical objects and mental objects. Tatunun, who formed himself by himself as Ptah. Tatunun, who is sitting on a potter's wheel. He has an egg sitting on a potter's wheel. You find the same conception of an egg in Dogon cosmology. And thus this egg is the potentiality for nature to come into existence. In other words, the egg contains the four elements: earth, air, fire, water. The egg contains the corpuscles, the minute subatomic particles, such as leptons, gluons, quarks, that constitutes and formulate into atoms, which are the fundamental building blocks of matter. Therefore, the egg represents the potentiality for existence to come into being, and this is what Tatunun manipulates. Ta, earth. Tu, and Nun. So the earth which comes from the Nun. Tatunun. Now, why can it say that he formed himself by himself as Ptah? Is because Tatunun, in his action of performing the potter's wheel, represents the conceptual stirring of the mind of God, Ptah. What that means is that creation has not come into being as yet. It means that a conceptual process has begun. In other words, God starts to think. But that thinking of the divine has not become conceptualized. Why? Because there is the egg, which is the potentiality. So it is the stirring of the matter. In other words, the 1/1000th of a millisecond before the Big Bang, the Big Bang constitutes an acceleration. The theory of the Big Bang is that all of the processes and the condensed matter that goes into constituting the universe is condensed in a very small and tight space, and then something activates an acceleration of that and a cooling down. So first it's very hot, and then with the acceleration it cools down, and as it cools, then matter is formed. The conceptual process of Ptah represents the very billionth of a millisecond before the expansion of that condensed matter starts to occur. Conceptualization. And thus, you as a human being with your finite mind, you conceptualize all the time. You are making thoughts, and your thoughts create your life. So you are the creator of your life. Your mind is creating. Your mind is constantly creating. If you want to know how to achieve your goals, you must know how the mind works as far as being the creator. No goal is outside your reach. For you to believe or think that your goal is outside your reach is a form of ignorance. It's a misapprehension, a misunderstanding of the true nature of the mind, the power of the mind. And thus, the toes of his body are 8, and these are the 8 gods and goddesses. Nununet, Huhuhet, Kukuket, Amun Amenet. That constitutes the very foundation upon which creation comes into being. As Ptah is the creative mind. Therefore, the 4 paired opposites represent the processes that go into allowing creation to come into being. First, you must have the potentiality, which is the egg. And from that potentiality, then you must have the processes by which that egg can be transformed, which means the conceptual mind can transform the potentiality into a tangible creation, tangible to the senses, that is. And thus, he appeared as Ra from noon. So when Ra rises out of the noon, then what you're going to have is you're going to start to have the creation. You're going to start to have the conceptualization of the mind becoming a tangible creation to the senses. And therefore, he sneezed as a tum from his mouth and gave birth. That means that creation is a process by which there's a conjoining of sound and mind, and modern science has already substantiated this. And therefore, the process of creation is a thinking conjoined with sound vibrations, meaning there are vibratory elements that ripple the ocean of consciousness and stirs the ocean of consciousness into palpable form. But the ocean of consciousness, now that creation is here, does not mean that the ocean of consciousness is out of existence, that the entire ocean of consciousness has been congealed into the infinite universe. It does not mean that. The noon permeates the entire creation, permeates the entire universe as its foundation, and it permeates the entire creation. If there are certain meditative results that one can achieve where one can experience the noon, and therefore if a practitioner experiences the noon, then that right there debunks the idea that the noon is no longer, that the noon is out of existence, because existence is here, physical matter is here. You cannot that would not be a valid conclusion, will not be a valid deduction from the perspective of science and from the perspective of the spiritual philosophy. He appears on his throne. Sorry, before that. Shu and Tefnut combined in manifestation. So Shu is a space. And we spoke about space-time before. And so you must have space-time. You must have a plate upon which creation can be sustained. You must have that kind of space. And also you must have the more dense kind of space, which is a space that exists between objects. And therefore, to vivify that creation, to allow that creation to be manifest in a workable form. What I mean by that is that let's say creation was not manifest in a workable form, and you eat a green leafy vegetable, then your body would not be able to gain any energy from it. Let's say you drink some water, your body wouldn't be able to be hydrated from it. The sun would shine on the plants, and the plants will not grow. There needs to be a vivification that allows the creation to become alive, and that is the goddess Tefnut. Tefnut is the moisture aspect, but the moisture here, talking about the subtle moisture, meaning the strong and weak electromagnetic forces that keep the corpuscles, the subatomic particles together that form the building blocks of matter, which are the atoms. And then you have the gross moisture, which is the moisture of rain, the moisture of dew in the morning, the moisture of snow, the moisture of the oceans, the lakes, the river, that kind of moisture as well. So you must have space, the plate upon which creation is laid, and you must have the energy or the life force that goes into making that creation. So you must have the noon, and then you must have the energetic processes that keep the corpuscles combined so that matter can be created, matter can be built. And thus, if all of this is a projection from the mind of the divine, in this case, Ptah is the mind of Amun. Amun is the hidden, which cannot be conceptualized by the mind. The deepest aspect of yourself cannot be conceptualized by your mind. You can have certain thoughts about it. You can have certain even revelations. You can have certain words of power that you might chant about it. Uwa Kuwa means I am the only one. So you can chant Uwa Kuwa about it. You can have certain philosophical insights about it. But as far as conceptualizing what it is with the mind, that cannot occur because it is beyond the reach of the mind. In other words, it is the juncture upon which mind dissolves, mind becomes deactivated, and you experience the pure essence of being, which the hidden is not being and is not being. It's a paradox that is cancelled by by the intuitive realization of the true nature of reality. He appears on his throne as his heart prompts. And this line is key. The reason why this line is key is because his heart here, the heart, which would be the word, which would be ab, represents, for a human being, represents the unconscious mind. And then therefore, what is the unconscious mind? You have certain likes. You have certain dislikes. You have certain affinities. You have certain things repulse you and certain things attract you. So you are attracted to certain kinds of foods and you're repulsed by other kinds of foods that other people are attracted to. And they're repulsed by foods that you are attracted to. You are attracted to certain kind of people and you're repulsed by certain kind of people. And there are other people that are attracted to people that you're repulsed by. And you're repulsed by the people that they're attracted to. How can all of this happen? How can all of this go on in day-to-day life? Is because of your psychic makeup at the level of your unconscious. Your unconscious, contained within your conscious, are certain desires, certain wants, certain needs, certain propensities. And these desires, wants, needs, and propensities are what compels your life, what makes you attracted to certain things and repulsed by certain things. Like if you like a certain kind of food, it's because you have built up in your unconscious an affinity for that certain kind of food. If you dislike a certain kind of food, it's because you've built up in your unconscious. But this is a very simplistic way of putting it as well. Your unconscious contains also your fears and your irrational desires and your affinities. Therefore, your unconscious is a reservoir of impressions that you have collected over previous lifetimes based upon your actions. So your actions are absorbed in your unconscious, which compel future actions based upon the construction of your unconscious mind, which is created by your own actions. Deep within your unconscious are what are called archetypes. You have certain archetypes in your unconscious. What that means is that you have certain energetic qualities. And these are the gods and goddesses, the divinities. You are attracted to a certain divinity because that divinity is an aspect of the total archetype of your unconscious mind. You follow? The gods and goddesses exist in your unconscious. And if your unconscious becomes stimulated in a proper way, and you're able to go into the unconscious, your unconscious opens up and you fall into it, then you're able to experience the powers. You can experience the positive powers and you can also experience the negative powers. It depends upon your adi and the level of purity of your mind. Saying all of this to say is that Amun appears on his throne as his heart prompts, meaning that that it is the unconscious that is compelling creation. So it is your own unconscious mind that is compelling your own creation, which is your life. Therefore, this for human beings, this is a problem. And the problem arises because it's the unconscious that makes one perform out of unrighteousness. If you don't understand your unconscious mind, you can make grievous mistakes in life. You can make grievous errors in life that do not remain hidden. Either you are going to become aware of it, and these are people who are practitioners, or you're going to be made aware of it based upon your own experience, because every action leads to a certain kind of result. There is no action that goes lost, because every action is absorbed in your unconscious. And therefore, the absorption of those actions in your unconscious compels you to a future action and compels you to a result based upon that action. If you're enjoying some kind, and this is a very simplistic example, but to get the point across, if you're enjoying some kind of pleasure, some kind of ice cream, you like this ice cream or whatever it is, and you're eating the ice cream, eating your ice cream. The taste, the flavor, how it makes you feel, the vibrations that it's putting off through your body, how it makes you feel, are all being stored by the unconscious, are all being absorbed by the unconscious mind. And therefore, that absorption of those feelings, those emotions that arise due to that interaction with that food is going to compel you to want more of that food. And that when you go for more of that food and you keep going for it, it's going to terminate in some kind of pain and misery, some kind of suffering. Therefore, what is necessary is discipline, a disciplined way of life. And that disciplined way of life is based on a moral, ethical discipline. In other words, ma'at, and not breaking the laws of ma'at, not breaking the precepts of ma'at. If you want to have your heart light, or as light as a feather, or lighter than the feather, who binds together for himself the kingship forever down to eternity, established as sole Lord. Light was his coming into existence on the first occasion, with all that exists in stillness for awe of him. Thus, when existence is coming into being, it is a process of going from spirit to matter. In other words, there's a continuum. I mean, when the creation is coming into being, it just doesn't appear as creation. There is a process. If you were to examine your own thinking abilities, you will see that it is the same way. That to make a thought in your mind, there's a process that occurs in the mind as the thought is being created. The process for some thoughts may occur very quickly, so you are not aware of the process. However, there are certain mental exercises, certain meditations that practitioners can do to gain insight into the process by which thoughts come into being. If those exercises are done, you will see that the creation of thought is a process. And therefore, what it's saying here is that creation is a process that goes through the continuum of the levels of spirit until there's a termination in matter. And so now to go to the handout. And let's see. Okay, so we're on the third to last line. So Kemam na Jeffet Neb Keperu Neb Amsen. I created the reptiles, divinities, become divinities from them. Spoke a little bit about this the last time. What this means is that the animal kingdom, or the animal realm, the realm of the animals, that the divinity takes up occupation in these animals as certain powers, certain forces, certain energies. And therefore these energies, these animals, are actually energetic manifestations of the divine. That's why you can worship them. In ancient Kemet, certain animals were mummified. Rams, bulls, crocodiles, alligators, ibis birds, hawks. The reason why they would do this is because of a deep and profound understanding that the animals contain certain powers that are conjoined with the human psyche. And that if a human being can awaken these powers in a positive way, that it can cause a spiritual evolution. In other words, Ra is the hawk, and Ra has a certain kind of energy. Kepera is the dung beetle, and the dung beetle has a certain kind of energy. Sebek is the crocodile, and the crocodile have a certain kind of energy, some kind of energetic force. And so the animals actually are the energies of God in the realm of time and space, in the realm of the animal realm. And so they are essentially divine powers. In other words, the divine has chosen to take up occupation in the animals as certain expressions of itself. And these expressions are intimately related to certain powers of the human psyche. Therefore, when you're seeing the animals, when you see an animal now, you probably will think a little differently about the animal, about what that really is. If you see a bird flying, you probably think about the hawk. If you see a reptile, you see a snake, you should be thinking about something there as well. These are energies, these are energetic capacities of God in time and space. And if a human being can tap into these energies, you can replicate these energies through your personality and therefore create a certain kind of spiritual evolution within yourself. There's the yoga postures. The yoga postures are replication of the animal powers. That is and that the physical powers postures should terminate into a psychic exercise, meaning at some time you have to stop moving your body and replicate the powers of your psyche in your mind. And that is where the real power of the animal powers are activated, in the mind. Now, because we exist in the realm of time and space, then there's a fundamental quality of time and space, and that fundamental quality is duality. We live in a realm of dual nature. Left, right, up, down, here, there, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 pairs, a pair of every finger, a pair of every toe, one on the left side, one on the right side of the body. Duality, pairs. Because of that, the animal powers in your psyche also have a wrathful aspect or a negative aspect. And thus, if the mind is impure, what human beings will encounter are the negative or wrathful aspects of the same animal powers. This is the philosophy of the powers of nature. Therefore, the animals are not simply just animals. So you just can't just be eating them without any kind of deep introspection or deep philosophical insight into what it is that is actually going on. And that is what has led to a lot of cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease in the Western industrialized nations, or in nations where people have forgotten how to placate the energies of the animals before they consume them. You can't just go consuming an animal, whether it be a chicken, whether it be a cow. You start consuming cows without understanding the energies behind it, you're going to have problems. There's no question. These are energies that are being released. When an animal is slaughtered, a certain kind of energy is released. If the people in the environment are unaware of how to pacify that energy, it will appear as disease in the human body. And also, it will appear as disease in the mind. It will start in the mind and then make its way into the body. Hence the mind-body connection of holistic medicine. If understood correctly, is a very powerful force of healing. If there's correct understanding of the energetic powers of the psyche, correct understanding of the animal powers of the world. When an animal is killed for slaughter, there a certain kind of ritual should go along with it. A certain kind of prayer, a certain kind of chanting, a certain ritual to pacify those energies that are being released. The energy of the divine has been encapsulated in the animal. And when the animal dies or is slaughtered, is killed, that energy is released into the environment. So how you stay away from that in this culture is you strive day by day, if you're not already, to become vegetarian. And then you eat the powers of the sun by eating green leafy vegetables. And thus, Mes'an. Mes'an means give birth. Shu and Tefnut. So we're at the last line now. Shu and Tefnut. Henanut. Shu Tefnut. Henanut. Mesu. En Gebnut Ausar-El. Which means Shu and Tefnut gave birth to Geb, Nut, Ausar, and Heru. So this combination of space-time and the force of creation that activates creation comes together to give birth to the earth, which is Geb, and the heavens, which is Nut, the goddess Nut. Now, when Geb and Nut are created, then it becomes possible for the animal powers to have an environment upon which to live. The animals live on the earth. They live on the Geb. As was said before, Geb is the male, so Geb is Father Earth. So in Kemetic theology, there is no Mother Earth. There's the Father Earth. And there's the Mother Heavens, which is the goddess Nut. So the space-time plasma of consciousness, the Nun, gives birth to Shu and Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut is the space and the energetic quality that allows Geb and Nut to come into being, which is the earth and the heavens. The earth and the heavens then give birth to what it means give birth. It doesn't mean an actual birth like how we would think of it. It means that the combination of the energies allows a new process to occur. It's like for it's not exactly, but it's like mixing two chemicals together and you get a third chemical. Because of the mind and how it operates, it is being used as male and female. So Shu is the male and Tefnut is the female. So it's giving kind of a conjoining of the processes. In other words, it's a cause and effect. You put these two processes together and you're going to gain another effect. You're going to gain something from it. And this is piercing the veil. Getting behind the cause and effect into the Amun is piercing the veil. Nature is the veil. The veil of Aset or the veil of Goddess Net is nature. When the veil of Goddess Aset or Goddess Net is taken off, it means that the mind is able to penetrate material form. And when I mean penetrate, it means to go beyond, not get caught by form, go beyond form, and able to experience that which is hidden. Nature is the clothing of God. And if your mind is pure enough and you can go beyond that, you can dismantle it in your meditation. So what happens is that, and you go deep enough within yourself, you'll be able to go into the hidden. This spiritual process of dismantling nature and going within the hidden actually gives you an idea. You can do this with objects, you do this with nature. Gives you the fundamental idea of your own true nature. Because there are certain powers, you have the animal powers, but you also have the human powers. The divinity Atum appears as a male. Amun appears as a full male. Ptah appears as a full male. Goddess Aset appears as a full female. What this means is that also Goddess Net appears as a full female. Neverhead appears as a full female. Selkit, you see her as female as well. What this means is that these energetic capacities that are apparent in the animals are present within you as a human being. If you're able to go beyond your animal instincts of your personality, which is to feed yourself, procreate, go beyond the animal impulses of the personality, what you would discover is the divine energetic qualities of your personality. If you're able to penetrate those energetic qualities, divine energetic qualities, what would be revealed to you is the truth of ultimate reality. And in that, all of ignorance is dismantled. And thus, Gebenut allows for Asar and Heru to come into existence. What is Asar? Asar here is the soul of every human being. So because there's earth and heavens, now the soul can take up occupation through a human form in time and space. All of this is the creation. Now, creation has a distinct purpose, and that is to bring Heru into the world. The final glyph on the end there, you see something that looks like a little triangle. And you see another that looks like a mouth. And you see the very last one, which is a male sitting down with a beard. How we know we're talking about the divinity Heru is because the male sitting down with his beard represents divinity, and the pronunciation is Heru. So we know that we're dealing here with the divinity Heru. What this means is that as the soul comes into time and space, spiritual aspiration is partnered with it. When you came into time and space, when you caused yourself to be born, and let's talk just about this lifetime, not all the other ones, we'll just talk about this one. Upon conception, when you were conceived in the womb of your mother, upon the instant you were conceived, your soul was in the vehicle to come into time and space, come into the world after the 9 months, talking about. But at the same time that soul was able to take up occupation in your mom's womb, your mother's womb, so was your capacity to achieve enlightenment. This is what this is saying. So then you might ask a very logical question. And a logical question would be, well, why is it then that not everyone achieves spiritual enlightenment? And that is because it is a process that takes place from a very long time, and it depends upon the karmic inclination of the person, and if the person actually really wants to do it. You must have that spiritual aspiration, that Heru aspect of your personality must be awakened, must be activated in some form. You be coming to these classes all the time, you're listening to the classes and you're doing your spiritual practices. You know that your Heru aspect is becoming activated. It's no longer in hibernation. There's no longer drunkenness in the world. Blinded by nature, looking at nature and thinking that nature is the reality. That is being blind. That is having no idea of the true nature of things, the true nature of reality. That is ignorance. You want to go beyond that. You want to go to the hidden. And so went over tonight. So we'll stop here, and then we'll pick up next time, and we'll conclude the Merunetter and go forward into the chapter 90. So that'll be it for tonight. Hota.